we're going to be giving you an inside look at the Lift platform in detail and walk you through every feature or many of the features that were discussed by Bryce and Will previously. So what you see here is we're inside the flow designer, and a flow is the basic building block for logic inside of Lift. A flow is a set of ordered tasks that defines a process. That process is likely to be any number of those business logic cases that Bryce and Will were describing earlier. You have three components to a flow that are a given. You've got a start of the flow. You've got a set of tasks after the start of the flow, and you have a complete of the flow. So let me show you the task layer here, because this is where the meat and potatoes of the logic occurs. So we've got core tasks, we've got location tasks, and we've also got integration specific tasks. So let me call out some of the core tasks here. You can notice that each task will have 4 handles: an inbound to the task, an outbound to the task, a fault or exception to the task, and a potential retry for that task. We've also got conditionals for switch casing between 2 different paths. And one of our most powerful features here is comprehensive logging and alerting, which Will mentioned earlier. So we also have location specific tasks, which I'll get into in one moment, but Will mentioned the concept of integrations. And an integration is simply an interface between Lift and any external system. So those external systems are comprised of many of the things that were shown in the orchestration slides of Bryce. And it could be a very diverse landscape. So here you see connections, simulated connections to ERP. You see connections to Fleet Manager Mir, the Mir AMR brand. You see connection integrations to Auto, the AMR brand. And this WLED is an integration to a REST endpoint. We also have integrations to OPC UA. And as Will mentioned, you can also get custom integrations for any external system that you may have in your manufacturing plant that you need to orchestrate. So what you'll notice here is that an integration also provides tasks. So if I see the tasks associated with this integration, the AMR platform Mir, this is an integration to the Mir Fleet Manager and allows me to move AGVs or AMRs, allows me to drop AMRs, and would also allow me to schedule missions. So something that might logically follow here is, where am I dropping these things? Where am I scheduling the mission? And Lyft has an extremely comprehensive location model. So locations are very straightforward. Locations are simply a representation of a physical position in your manufacturing facility. And we've got a number of tasks that allow for very complex movement and orchestration amongst and across fleet management and disparate fleet management platforms across various AMR AGV vendors. One of the most powerful tasks that we have related to locations is that of location search. A location search allows you to filter on various locations. It also allows you to filter by grouped locations. So you can group locations together. Those filters can be assigned to is occupied or is not occupied, type, and whether it is assigned. And moreover, we've got a completely custom attribute field that can be filtered on as well. So let me pull you into the locations a little bit closer here to show you how that works. Locations can be created and nested in any hierarchical organizational pattern that you so desire. And you can also see that locations can be shared across various integrations. So you see a staging location, which is a grouping of locations to stage product, as Bryce referred to earlier, being a very common use case for AGV AMR deployments. And you can see that staging one has shared integrations across REST API, Mir, Auto, and you can have as many different shared integrations as you desire here. What I am also showing you here is that I can add attributes. So I can filter on what color of product, what the order date of that product, what the SKU of that product is when I am trying to determine movement within a flow. So one final note about locations is it may also follow, if you are familiar with AGV AMR fleet managers, that they also have locations inside the fleet manager. And that is exactly how we are mapping locations from that fleet manager into Lyft specific locations. So this is how various fleet managers across many different AGV AMR platforms may share locations amongst themselves. All right, so I am not going to just keep you inside this platform. I think it'd be kind of fun to show you actually moving vehicles. That's what people want to see here. So what we're going to show you is some of those integrations. We've got some of those concepts rather. I've got a staging group location here, and I've got a initial location. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate a ERP order here. So I am going to simulate a SKU being set up for a pick to a staging location and final drop off as well. So what you're going to see here is that I may simulate connection here from many different diversity of platforms. So it could be SAP. We've got support for connections to MES. We've got support for connections to OPC. And any of these can be used as a trigger for movements here. So I'm going to confirm this, and I'm going to show you very quick here an incredibly powerful component of Lyft is not only can I edit flows, I can see them running in real time. So this is the flow that I had just kicked off. And if I go back to the camera here, you're going to see that this auto vehicle is going to retrieve the virtual package represented by the red LED. And once it gets aligned here, it is going to retrieve that virtual item. Of course, it's being very careful. Safety first. And right now, all right, yep, it has retrieved the virtual package. And once again here, I can see this flow being executed in real time, where right now it is searching for an unoccupied location in the staging buffer. So of course, none of those locations are full or occupied. So it's going to pick that very first one here. And what you're going to see in just a moment is a completely different AGV AMR brand, the mirror vehicle going to retrieve that virtual item in the staging location. So here we go. The mirror has gotten its command and is waking up and is going to location to retrieve that item. And once again, you can see all of this coordination between these AGV AMR platforms inside of Lyft in real time. So now we're on to the final lap here. We're taking that virtual material to the final resting place at the end. And of course, yes, our mirror is going to deliver that virtual item to the final destination. And I see all of these steps in real time. So what I want to show you is even more powerful. So I saw it in real time, and this is the flow that I was seeing. Not only can I see it in real time in the viewer, I can also play it back in real time. So I can see the timing of each of the flow commands. I can see what happened during each of these flow commands. As you notice on the left, the staging location is null, which means that it hasn't selected a staging location to drop. And once it does that location search, all right, now I've got an unoccupied location in staging one. All flows that are executed are historized in this way, and you can play them back in a real-time viewer, as you are seeing here. All right, so we've got very comprehensive location-based logic and replay. So let's go even further. So integrations also allow you to map and create what are known as data points. So data points are simply a variable in the external system. So you might say, well, locations are all well and good, but that seems like it only applies to AGVMR. What about MES or SCADA or ERP or WMS, WCS? Well, guess what? You can map any variable that you so desire inside of those external systems as data points. Moreover, I can then use those data points inside of the flow. If you take a look at triggers here, I can add a trigger for a flow from a data point. So now I can take any arbitrary variable in a external system as provided by integrations and use a data point to trigger that flow. And of course, we've got very comprehensive parameterization if you want to get more complex, as well as trigger settings and many different advanced features within each of these tasks. So coming full circle here, let's say I do a location search, and this might be a really common example, is that I do a location search and it doesn't find a available location. So now I've got a stranded vehicle. So we actually don't necessarily need to have a stranded vehicle here. I can log that it did not find a location. I can alert that it did not find a location. And these alerts can go to SMS, email, and in-app banners as well for comprehensive escalation for critical alarms and alerts. And I can also have a completely different path. So let's say I don't find a location. There is no occupied location. Okay, let's move that vehicle to a exception buffer. Let's move it to an exception area or an overflow. And if it does find that location, then let's do something completely different. In fact, let's move an auto and a mirror at the same time. So you can imagine here that we can get very interesting business logic. And I'll briefly show you here some of the more comprehensive flows that we can get to go on here. So I'm not going to take you through each of these stages, but you can see here how we get a lot of different conditional logic here achieving some relatively complex orchestration, and it's all visible, replayable, and auditable within the Lift platform. And speaking of auditing, I am going to also show you that each flow has comprehensive versioning. So we know that software development lifecycle, dev, UAT, prod is super important. So we have draft version, we have approved versions, we have rollback for versions, we have audit trails for users within the system for flow modification. So if somebody makes a mistake or you're testing a flow, it has to be approved first. And guess what? Even if it's approved, even if it's in prod, well, we made a mistake. Well, then we'll just roll that back very naturally, extremely easily for any flow. Another thing too is that I can cascade flows. So I can have a flow call another flow and get really in-depth functional blocking to sort of organize my flows into parent-child relationships. So that gets into some of the more complicated ideation. But if you're a programmer and you're in low code, no code, and you feel a little bit hemmed in, you're more comfortable in an IDE, I get you. Well, guess what? We also have a script task. So you can have all of the Python that you so desire inside of here. And yes, we support pip imports as well. So power users, do not fear. Low code, no code for when you need it, power use when you want it. So let's circle one final time back around here to security. So cybersecurity, ACL, access control list. How am I handling this? So you see that we have many different role management ability, and I can have a user have a comprehensive exception access policy here inside of role management. And of course, I need not mention this, it is a standard, but yes, of course, we have SSL encryption on all traffic inbound and outbound if that is something that you want to set up. And you may wonder, there's a lot going on here. How will I keep track of that? Well, guess what? Every single instance of Lyft comes with documentation as part of the server. So this is completely air gapped. This is hosted on the Lyft server. I have access to this in a complete down scenario. We've got all sorts of documents on here on how to use the Lyft platform and get the most powerful out of it that you would need.